Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Rico, how'd you find this link? Was that also off of the Slack?
Yes.
Okay. I should send the email probably.
I've updated our meeting notes with the right link.
Perfect. I'm going to start with check-in while we see if other people show up. This is a quick and easy one. What's something you're looking forward to in the next week? And when you think of one, go ahead and go and then nominate whoever you think should go next.
I can go first. I play in a men's adult baseball league, and I've kind of become the manager of our team. And so every Saturday or Sunday, I am looking forward to being out in a baseball field like a 9-year-old kid that I am. I'll nominate Eric.
I'm looking forward to riding my bike this weekend. Nominated Rob. I don't know that I have anything special I'm looking forward to. I guess Brendan.
It's a very Rob answer. I like it. I'm going to try to get back to running. I'm really looking forward to trying that. I said I would start in June. Kelsey.
I do this every week, but I'm very excited to open my beehive again and see if they've progressed.
So what does progression mean?
Yeah, so this is great. There's 10 frames. By the way, I can do bee facts for hours now. I've been reading a lot. But there's 10 frames in my hive. And basically, when they've got 70% of it filled with drawn out comb, then I'm supposed to give them another box to fill up, because it means they might get too full otherwise. But they only started drawing comb on 2 of the frames so far, other than the 4 that they came with, so who knows?
Did you get a good yield?
You don't harvest until like July or August.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally forgot.
They need the first like couple of boxes for themselves, and they're working on it. But we've got some good nectar flows going. Are we expecting more people?
I don't know. I think we can just roll. If that's unless others disagree, but
Seems reasonable.
I guess, do we know if we're expecting Michelle or anybody from Protocol, since it seems like at least one of the major issues is pretty heavily protocol focused?
I'll be honest, I'm not expecting anyone because I don't think I've heard any communication there. I also think that whatever we discuss here, I'll make a point of chatting with the folks at Protocol and make sure that it's communicated and that we figure out a sort of succession of who's going to be running point on the project. I don't think Michelle's had a chance to like say explicitly that she plans on doing it, and I want to make sure that they have a chance to sort of chat through that. But rather than keep us blocked, I think we have the chat here, come up with concrete recommendations, and then see if that's kosher.
Shall we begin with updates? Brendan, you want to go first?
I've been talking, so Rob's already listened to me talk about a query update on the call today. Rob joined our first query dev community call. So I'm wondering, Rico, would you mind just like doing a quick update on what we've been up to over the last quarter?
Gosh, a whole quarter.
I mean, you can literally just pick highlights, like it's cool.
Yeah, I think balancing sort of trying to release regularly with some of the what we've been talking about is elements of the biggest promises we make. The way Brendan likes to describe it is that on a back-end perspective, we're basically feature complete, which means you can do most of the things on the back end that we said we'd promise Query will ultimately do. That comes with caveats and lots of documents that you have to use to teach yourself, but basically most of the things are technically possible, which is super exciting. So now we're kind of ramping up a lot of our outward engagement. So Brendan's been doing a ton of talks around New York City. We've been partnering with organizations to drum up some users and talk about what the project's aimed at going forward. And in addition, we're trying to pivot a big part of our focus to the front end to make sure that the gap between what you can do on the front end and the back end is steadily shrinking. We made a big hire. This guy, Chris Wong, will be starting in July for us. He's been somebody that I've kind of been talking to for about a little more than a year, and it was our dream to sort of make him a Query's #1 user, and we managed to turn that into an actual hire. This is my son, Omar. All right, pick a side. And so he starts in July. Beyond that, the team's kind of growing, and we're bringing on some new work in some different areas, and that's sort of just internally to the company. I think that all the news that's fit to print, how that relates to Data Together. I don't know if you want me to get into that at all, but that's a company-wide update.
Would anyone like to do the edgy update?
Kelsey, I think you're the most situated to do it. I don't want to put you on the spot, but like you're definitely most aware of the things that we don't really know much about.
I think it's mostly been the reading group. I've been working on that blog and then poking around the website, which we'll get to. First, I was like, do we already have a blog on the website? And then I went to pull up the website and it didn't open. But then I cloned it and ran it locally and realized we didn't have a blog feature. So I worked on building one by which I mean learning Hugo. But I don't know if we've done other Data Together things specifically. Edgy as a whole has been doing a lot of reflection and thinking about goal setting. Man, that is a lot to characterize a quarter worth of a whole org. Good job, Rico. Yeah, any highlights from the quarter? I honestly, I don't even know.
I can speak very specifically to some of the work in web monitoring. So, and not even from the software development end, but from the monitoring end of things and the analysis end of things. So the research team has put together our term analysis report. So we've done a comparison of the use of different terms, 50, 60 different environment, climate-related terms, comparing their use between spring 2016, so Obama era, and spring 2018, Trump administration. And so that report characterizing those
changes is pretty well developed and on its way. That's been a lot of our focus in web monitoring this past quarter. In addition to Sarah Wiley had some students working with us in web monitoring to do some of the week-to-week analysis.
I did actually think of two more things that might be interesting to this group. One is that we have a potential to help revamp the ECHO website. And that is probably going to be a cross-working group thing. The other is we have that EIS search prototype that we built, like, well, by we, I'm speaking very generously, but there's some interest from Sarah and Chris within our group to have some kind of connection with a library to try to host tools like that. Chris mentioned that when they get FOIAs into the interviewing group, they're supposed to make that publicly accessible. And he was like, you know what'd be cool is if there was like some kind of full text search that worked on the database that they exist. They have all these links that are impossible to find, but they exist on the internet. I was just like, this is a connection that we could have. So both Sarah and Chris sounded like they might have leads on like librarians to talk to or university libraries that they might reach out to. So that's an interesting thing that could happen. Yes, thank you for the clarification, Rob. Provide recommendations for revamping ECHO. So Sarah has a contact with the person who basically developed the ECHO website, and but my understanding is due to bureaucracy, they have never user tested the site, but would actually be delighted to receive information from user testing, and would be very likely to implement. Brendan, you were saying something?
Yeah, no, this is really exciting. Yeah. Okay, cool. Do we want to skip? I mean, obviously no one from PL's here, so we can skip their update. Do we want to get to logistics working website? Cool. So I think it might be helpful just to like start this with the basic like 30-second history of what our current website is and how we ended up where we are. Is that helpful, or is everyone on the call up to speed on it? Okay, cool. We always wanted it to be, so Data Together needed a website. We always wanted it to be hosted on the DWeb. Turns out that's a little, so we, from the get-go, have always used Hugo, which is a Golang-based static site generator, mainly because it was something that we had been using, that Protocol Labs had been using, and that we use at Query. So there was just like a natural overlap there. But it spits out a static site, which is great. You can, if you want to, you can put that into a DAT or an IPFS hash. And we actually intended to do that and like serve, I think even some of the text, the copy of the site says like, hey, this is being served from the distributed web, which is great and nice, but it's turned out to be quite a maintenance burden to actually keep that thing functioning, which is, there are broader points you can draw from that, but let's not go there. The general vibe is like currently the process is the website gets made, somebody creates that hash on IPFS, and then that hash is then pinned, and then there is a DNS record that points to that new hash, and that is how datatogether.org actually realizes DWeb data. It's that content has traditionally been pinned by Protocol Labs to their gateways, and then at some point, somewhere along the way, the current hash sort of fell off and is no longer accessible, and that's why we're currently not seeing the website itself. The process by which we actually work on the website is intended to be exactly the same as any other website. There shouldn't be anything specifically DWeb-y about it, except for some settings. But yeah, and so the only other thing I'd add to this is we were doing a similar thing with Query.io for a while, where we were hosting it from the DWeb, and we actually switched to GitHub Pages and just do the whole thing now as GitHub. One of the biggest reasons that we found was like it was fine. Like we had our own server that worked, but like we wanted, Rico had started taking on the mantle of helping maintain the website and shifting pull requests, having the website publish every time a pull request merged became just kind of like a vital thing. And that for us has allowed more people to contribute to enhancing our website. And that has been a really, that's been a real lesson for us, that we just need to be able to publish. It needs to publish as soon as the pull request is merged. And if there's anything that's inconsistent or unreliable about that, then we ran into a lot of problems. I think hopefully that's enough background, unless anyone has any questions about the technical stuff. The actual pinning infrastructure was eventually intended to be handled by a Travis CI process. That never ended up working, if I understand it correctly. But we can again leave that. Any questions there, Rob?
I think so. I put some notes in the linked GitHub issue from what I had found when I was looking at it. And the thing that seems like a problematic sticking point to whatever we decide to do, to me, is that Protocol Labs owns the DNS. Do any of us have access to it?
Yes, I actually do as well. The DNS symbol has been shared with me. Lars Gareth at Protocol does a lot of their DNS work, and they use DNS simple for a lot of their DNS administration work. And he actually shared administrator rights to datatogether.org with me. And so I pay DNS simple $5 a month for the privilege of being able to change that record, and despite having never done it. So I can change it, and we can get that done. We can also, because it's DNS simple, we can program changes to it if we wanted to. It just means writing code. Does that answer the question?
Brendan, I'm a little curious about, you guys just didn't want to do a CI pinning process internally, capacity-wise, or was there another reason to? I mean, GitHub Pages is easy, I get it, but.
Yeah, I think capacity is the word of the hour here. We have every now, and quite frankly, it would be much easier to do now because we actually have a running service that maintains and pins IPFS hashes, which we did not have nearly as robustly as we did before. We were having some major problems with that surrounded Kubernetes, but yeah, the process, and also just the process is a little more onerous, and that was kind of it. Nothing more. We definitely want to be over to pinning our website. We even get people filing issues hey, because there's still a DNS link record for query.io that leads to a hash, which is also fallen off the DWeb.
Yeah, Rico?
I would just round that out by saying one of the things that I can't help myself from doing if I'm ever in a group project is one of the reasons I became so involved with the website redesign was, and all I did was just mock up some wires, was that I sort of listened in carefully about this debate between what the website should look like and what the purpose of Data Together is. And so a lot of the mock-ups that I did probably more than a year ago now sort of reflect this discussion of are we recruiting people? If so, there should be some avenue for learning about what Data Together is and does. Are we putting knowledge and our opinions out there? In which case, as you said, Kelsey, some kind of blog format or an active Twitter account would be a little more powerful. And so I think a lot of the last state of the wires reflected what my impression of where the conversation was last time it was put down. And so that's kind of the background for why the wires look the way they do today, wherever those files are.
So with that, Kelsey, I think do you want to sort of talk, because we've since had conversations about the blog and I think we all agree that we want a blog. And I think it's worth building on what Rico just said about, I think the aim of the website has tacitly shifted despite the fact that it's no longer in sync with that, we have a desired set of changes. Because to me, I'm hearing the other branch from what Rico had currently mocked up. Just we were sort of when Rico spit out those wireframes, it was very attracting and retaining new organizations and think given that 2 of the 3 organizations are currently on this call, like just getting everyone here is like a starting point. But I genuinely believe that like the reading group and the work that is coming out of your editing of the reading group stuff and blog posts around that is just like super valuable. And just disseminating some of the work that we're doing, I think is really, even just the list of readings, to me is starting to feel more and more and more valuable. I don't know how others feel about that, and I'd love to take the room temperature on that. But I think some of the work we're doing is really cool, and I think just having a place to push it out would be, to me, trumps even getting other people to come hang out. Maybe that's fair to say.
I don't see us having more capacity in the near future, which leads me to the most minimal implementation, which would be like switching to GitHub Pages or something similar with intent to in the future pin it somewhere else. I also have let me go find the issue, but I had a link to what it would look like to include the blog in the website as it is. And it's basically like we have a page right now, which is what is it? It's like public knowledge layer or something like that, and it has a tiny paragraph kind of explaining it, but I'm not sure if it's meant to be a public website or not. But like Hugo is, like, most of the tutorials are for blogging, and if we got rid of that page and replaced it with blog posts, that would be the very simplest thing to do. And maybe in the future we'd want to re-architect it, but it looks like Hugo's pretty well set up to let you have the links not change. So
I personally would love to just go forward with that and do it. You've got some blog material. I would like to just see it exist, and I think we should flip to the GitHub pages, get rocking and rolling. And like, Kelsey, if you part of the way I see this conversation is like, you have been learning Hugo and like figuring out how to add this stuff. Like, let's just get you unblocked and let's get this stuff published. And to me, that feels like the most important thing to do in this conversation.
that'd be great.
Okay, well, we do have 2 of the 3 organizations represented, and we have a governing agreement that lets us do these kinds of things. So do we want to just go ahead and do this and figure out? I will obviously send an email off to the folks at Protocol and making sure that giving them a time frame. Sort of, I think the easiest thing to do is just ask for a review on a pull request. And I don't think they'll have any issue with this, to be totally honest. I think this is a really beneficial thing for anybody who's interested in this space, particularly trying I think the issue that a couple of others see, like there's a couple of things coming up, like IPFS Camp and the DWeb Summit. I think it would be really nice to have some of these things available, just so that if others are interested, it's up in time for those. So yeah. Anybody disagree? Anybody think that we're moving too quickly here? I feel like we've talked about this a bunch, and it's just time to like get it out there and keep moving. Okay, so then I think let's see if we can't do that. Like, get a pull request up and running that switches us to GitHub Pages, or at least outline in an issue what it would take, and just get a quick. I'll reach into some folks at PL and make sure we get a quick review on that. But I think we should move forward as if it's a made decision.
Yeah, I can do a PR with the content changes. Does somebody else want to take on the GitHub Pages bit?
I can make that switch considering we've made it in the past.
Cool. We went through that pretty quick. So we got lots of time to look at our annual goals. Unless you want to throw the Data Together annual meeting scheduling in front of that, just to make sure we get to it.
I think it might be fun. Yeah, is everyone okay if we just take a couple minutes to chat about this? Um, cool. So yeah, I think we have to have an annual meeting. It's Queer's turn to host. So we're thinking tentatively we want to host it in New York, but because there's travel involved for a lot of folks, we would definitely be doing some sort of dial-in if you can't travel. But we'd want to sort of give everybody ample chance to come join. Mainly because I think I'm really enjoying the sort of more thinking driven work that we're doing. And I think that one proposal I'd like to make to the group is that this year we add a half day where we give folks who are involved and around Data Together just some like space to do a talk and have it recorded and then put that on the website at the end. And I think, personally, I was thinking we would just leave it as pretty open-ended. Like I think some of the folks that are in and around this space just naturally prepare talks around subjects that are vibrant and interesting. And I think it can kind of be a little more unconferencey. But I'd like to kind of keep, I would love to sort of see some of this stuff recorded and put onto the internet as like a encapsulation of some of the thinking that's coming out of this space. And I think it would just be really fun to have a very small audience where we get to sort of listen to our peers talk about something they're really passionate about and sort of be there to ask in-person questions. So we think, tentatively, we're thinking we'd structure it over 2 days, sometime either late August or September or October, depending on when we could sort of actually get as many folks who can possibly participate involved. And then Query would cover the cost involved with setting up recording and getting that stuff edited down and distributed. But mainly also just the cost of running the food and getting spaces. But super excited and easy to do that. But yeah, first just wanted to get, I think the day and a half of like the annual meeting is kind of well understood, but the other half I think is like kind of new, and I wanted to sort of see how others feel about that.
Were you thinking that would be like just the same people who are there for the annual meeting, or like a slightly larger, more unconferencey thing that we might actually invite people to?
Personally, I was thinking it would be really fun to like start with just asking the group, like, do we want to extend the invites to like, 2 or 3 people? I think I don't want to get overly ambitious and like end up running a conference. Like, I think we just want to have like a chance to disseminate some of the thinking that's been happening. But I don't think that we should by any means be exclusive to the people who are Data Together members. And I'd love to see if we want to invite people. And I think it might be really helpful as a way to just like grow the people who are involved. I think they should also be invited to the annual meeting, which is not necessarily a closed thing by any means. And so I think it'd be a really fun chance to bring some new faces in if anyone was interested. I would also balance that with, let's not invite 15 new people and like not be able to sort of provide a proper framework for that. So there would be some balancing there, but yeah. And I also sort of like, I didn't really have much in the way of like timing, but I thought it would be easy to sort of frame things around like either half hour or 45-minute blocks. And anybody who like was already a member of Data Together and would be interested in giving a talk should totally just like put their hand up and say, cool, I want to do something. And then if we get enough out of that, then great, that's plenty. And then yeah, but if someone's like, I want to nominate someone else in, then we should do that. There.
No, I think it's a really interesting and good idea. It just strikes me as a complement to the reading group and blog posts in terms of getting the conversations and thinking that's happening here out into the public. So, I mean, it's a different format. It's more focused on an individual or a series of individuals giving a talk, but as opposed to a group conversation. But I think in that way it complements. It's not. Yeah, I think I like the idea.
Kelsey's thumbs up. Do you have anything to add to that? Do you think it's worth doing? Are you nervous that we wouldn't be able to pull it off? It would be a massive logistical disaster.
I don't usually worry about that, but I think it'd be great. I love having the kind of conversations we have and giving people a little bit of time and space to think about putting together talks is always neat. It occurred to me when you said like it'll be half-hour talks or 45-minute talks. I've never seen a talk conference say something like, how long do you want your talk to be? And that might be a neat thing that we could do.
I'm so behind that. I just wanted to provide a reference point of framing, right? I didn't want people, but I think pivoting anywhere around. I think we'd have an upper bound of like an hour, just because, unless you had like a thesis and you're like, I want an hour and a half and we're going deep. But I mean, hell, we have lots of PhDs in the room, so like maybe it's totally appropriate. But yeah, I think it'd be really fun. Yeah, and just starting small with like a half day, and then we kind of go from there. But see what interests.
A bunch of you, I think, I definitely messaged to the channel the thing that's happening at DWeb Camp, where there's a bunch of people who want to talk about. It wasn't even me who submitted this issue. I'm delighted. It is someone who knows Dawn and is in Toronto, but still wants to talk about like protocols and values and stuff. And I could probably bring back some lessons from there in terms of how we could organize.
That'd be great. Cool. Okay, so I think we just to like put some deadline setting around getting the organization around this. Rico and I chatted before the meeting, and so it's the planning call outs and the hey, fill out this doodle poll of your availability and whether you would be able to come. Yeah, I think we'd like to get that out in at least by the first week of June, and just start gauging interest and see if we can schedule that. So I think we should set a deadline of that for us at Query to sort of reach out to folks with this. But I think considering we're hosting, we'll just say that we're doing this half day of talks, and you're welcome to come if you want to, and provide the framing that was here. Kelsey.
Around scheduling, there are a couple of things to be aware of. I think there are a bunch of people within EDGI who go to a conference in late October in Louisiana, or not October, sorry, late August. Eric, can you say anything about that?
Yeah, so a bunch of, especially the academic side of EDGI, but not exclusively, goes to the Society for Social Studies of Science, or 4S conference, which this year is hosted the week of Labor Day in New Orleans. So that may not work for a lot of people in EDGI specifically.
One thing that I'd heard around it was light discussion that groups might try to coalesce around it. So I know Radical Org talked a little bit about having an EDGI annual meeting again. And I know you guys are in New York, but I'm wondering if maybe it would make sense to at least look at the option of looking at, reducing travel, seeing if we can add it to the end of something.
100%. Yeah. And in past meetings, we've just literally used the fact that Query is a WeWork member, and we actually hosted an annual meeting in Boston. And so like it's particularly when the group sizes are like sub 20, so it's actually fairly straightforward for us to book in another city because we can just rent out boardrooms inside of WeWorks, and it's a great situation for that. I mean, it's good. Wouldn't say it's great, but it's and so like doing something around gosh, I'd love to go to New Orleans. That'd be amazing, particularly if I can just get more folks. Cool. So then I think we should add that as a proposed alternative, as a particularly I'm on the Radical Org channel, so I'll see if they were thinking before or after. We'd probably go with this because Kelsey, you're in Radical Org. Is anyone else? Would they be like double booked? Should we go the opposite of Radical Org?
Kevin and Liz, I don't know if she's technically in Data Together, but sometimes.
Oh, she totally is, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we'll put that out as like either end and see what folks think. Cool.
It might not even be a double booking thing. It might be like, well, let's just have 3 conferences in a row. That might be a lot.
Yeah, we'll see how everyone feels, but that's why we ask. Perfect. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, to the annual goals.
I haven't looked at this list in a while.
I just requested access from both Rico at Query and our Gardafe. So if someone can grant me that from the Query account, that'd be great.
Try that sharing link in the chat, see if that works. Cool, so who wants to kick off this discussion?
There was a mention when we put these OKRs together of the idea that when we had the civics reading, we'd follow that up with making that civic layer text.
So I was looking at that comment and that goal, and my initial reaction was, I mean, this idea of publishing compilations of our conversations about or on each reading, monthly reading, set of readings, would get us partway to that goal. So maybe one way to move forward on that is just do what we did for Knowledge Commons, but for the civic readings. And then maybe later this year, come back and actually do some deeper thinking, harder thinking on our conversation, and then come up with that more focused blog post.
Huge plus one to that. I think that system works really well. I can't get over how much clarity I get from the condensed transcript stuff. I do want to bring up the GitHub repos are accurate, because that's something that we need to move in on. I actually had somebody ask if they could take on an issue around API maintenance this last week, and it was sad to be like, sorry, no. Mainly because these APIs are being used, and it wouldn't be reasonable to ask you to commit time to a project that doesn't have sort of a solid set of stuff. So, and I'm noticing in this document, I have like a commitment to do 4 repos a month if we have some clear direction on what to do with the code there. So I think, in talking with others, we sort of have all, through lack of agreement to move forward, agreed that like data together software arm is kind of like going to be put in park. And I think we should go through and actually archive the repos and list them as such. There are some exceptions. So there are some packages that are actually being used. And I think we should sort of like highlight those and maybe just leave them where they are. But there's a number that can be archived because they aren't being used. As long as I can get a +1 from another org, I think we should just go ahead and start doing that so that others aren't picking up on old issues and potentially seeing work or a chance to aren't being directed to the right place. Is everyone okay if we do that? I think we should. I think this is just general maintenance that should happen. It's a goal of ours, and it would be a chance to meet one of our calendar goals, but also sort of like scope things a little nicer. Cool. Okay, so then I think I'll take that as license to go ahead and start doing that. Can you tell I'm taking a lot of liberty? And then I think we're actually making real inroads on this more accurate website. I think that some of the conversations we've had today are legitimately accomplishing some of the goals here. And so I feel good about some of the other stuff. We are planning an annual meeting, and we are at a quarterly meeting right now. So not doing so bad.
Are there more talks that we could add to the Data Together talks? That would definitely make our website look more up to date right away.
We did do a query specific one. I don't know that it's more of a technology demo than it is a values talk, but the beginning of it is values oriented. I can get you the link and you can decide.
I know Michael Rogers did one on behalf of Protocol at Cascadia last fall. I can put that up. Okay. Is there more we want to talk about from our goals? It does kind of feel like we're doing them. It's nice. We never did set any metrics we could actually measure. Maybe that's fine. It's not how an OKR is supposed to work, but we're just using a framework.
If I recall correctly, there was some liberal interpretation of the phrase OKR even when we set the goals. And so I don't think we need to be, I think metrics would be cool, but one thing at a time. Neat.
Shall we then go into our closing circle? This is just like the check-in. It's a checkout, and it's what's something you liked about today's meeting?
We decided not one but two things that have a clear path forward that aren't fuzzy.
Yeah, I think realizing that we actually scoped down our goals a while ago, and that was the smart move, and that we're not feeling way out of sync with what we said we'd do. I'm pumped about that.
I liked when we went into the annual goals section and Brendan kind of took over moderating. That was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the feeling that there is progress and momentum and optimism about the next few months.
Yeah, and on that, I think I've been to 2 annual meetings now, so this would be the 3rd this fall. And I think those are really great capstones on the year. I remember like any organization I've ever been a part of is a lot of like type A's who whatever want to get a whole lot done immediately. And I think I take some wisdom from what Matt Zumwalt said last year, which is if we just continue to engage with each other and support each other, that's a pretty good accomplishment worthy of celebration. And so I'm pretty excited that we began looking forward to doing that again this fall, wherever it is and whenever it is. I think that's worth celebrating.
All right. Thanks, everybody. That's all for this one.
Nice, Dave. We'll see you all next Tuesday for
Yeah.
reading. All right. Bye.
Bye.